How's it going, Blake?
I am doing great. Welcome, everyone, to the Brothers Brawl podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about Innistrad Crimson Vow, the latest set for Magic the Gathering. So, Levi, should we jump right into it?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Obviously, we've got this awesome cover art of Soren here. They have some absolutely stunning artwork in this set.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and with that, some of the stunning artwork comes on Planeswalkers. No surprise there. So let's talk about Planeswalkers here first, as they're usually the big flashy cards. Obviously, we have some other mythics in the set, but I wanted to talk about Planeswalkers, and I wanted to start off the podcast talking about what you think of these Planeswalkers. Are they good? Are they good enough?
Yeah. My order for these walkers is going to be Chandra, Soren, then Kaia.
So Chandra's the top Planeswalker
Yep.
of the set, then Soren and Kaia.
Yep. That's
Okay.
my order there. What about
You
you,
know, I
Blake?
I kind of had a similar order here, but I'm actually putting Soren at the top. So I'd say Soren, Chandra, Kaya. Now, let's go through one by one here and talk about it. So let's start with Chandra since they're on the left here,
Mm-hmm.
starting out with. So Chandra is a 3 mana planeswalker with 3 loyalty, uh, 2+1s. The first +1 adds a red and deals a damage to your opponent or a planeswalker. The second +1 gets you a card at the top of your library only if it's red, and then you have to cast it that turn, typical Chandra fashion. And then the -7 is you do a bunch of stuff. You get the top 5, you get an emblem that blows up your opponent. It's a huge finisher that'll likely close out the game. So, Levi, walk me through what you think of Chandra dressed to kill.
So I actually really like Chandra Dress to Kill. This reminds me of the Kaladesh Chandra, but in a little bit of a light version with a better mana cost on this. The plus ability not only does 1 damage to an opponent, which is what we see in a lot of just regular +1 abilities on Chandras, but also adds that red mana, which I think can be huge in instant sorcery decks, decks that are looking to use a Chandra like this. I think having that red mana available is really nice.
Mm.
Not only for Brawl, but I think this is going to do some things in Standard as well. Um, the exiling the card and being able to play it if it's red is huge for card advantage in red decks. In Is It spells, it's not as important because you have that blue component, but in Rakdos and in non-blue, so green red, anything else, white red decks like that, I think that's going to be huge. Being able to get some early game card advantage on the board that is repeatable, and then that finisher there is just kind of a Chandra-y finisher. I don't know if you're ever going to get to it since it's a walker starting on 3 with a alt on 7 and only +1s to get there, but I think it's definitely, if you can get there, it'll win you a game.
That's true. Yeah, you probably would need some type of a way to double up your counters there if you really wanted to get to that. But I hear you.
Art on this is also just gorgeous. Just very good art.
Yeah, I honestly I think the art from this set just blows me away. I think it's even better than Midnight Hunt.
I'll disagree with you on that, but to each their own.
I've heard a lot of people make the comparison to Chandra Torch of Defiance from uh, Kaladesh, and I don't know that I totally see it. And here's why. The big difference is the -3 from Torch of Defiance can blow up a creature. It does 4 damage, and yeah, it puts your Chandra at 1 loyalty and leaves it pretty vulnerable. But I just don't see this Chandra being able to protect itself. And if you are making a really aggressive deck, then you probably are going to play a 3-drop creature instead of Chandra. Now, that's just for Brawl specifically. I think that when it comes to other formats, like you said in Standard, I think that there's a lot of those blue-red decks that barely play any creatures anyways. It's just basically, Goldspan Dragon and, maybe another dragon in
Mm-hmm.
there. But specifically for Historic Brawl, I think you just have better options at that 3-drop slot. Um, if you're doing a Chandra tribal deck, I could see the argument for this, but I think that just netting a card at the top of your library each turn, while also your opponents can attack into your Chandra, just doesn't do enough. And if you're looking for a ramp, then you might as well just play a mana rock that you can sack at, like a Raska Relic or Letter of Acceptance or something like that.
Yeah, I see your point. The lack of being able to protect itself is a bit of an issue. I just think that in Boros decks and Rakdos decks, that this does so much different stuff that you can probably afford a 3-drop slot for it.
Yeah, I could definitely see Boros or Mono Red wanting to play it. I think that second ability having to be red also turns me off a little bit on it. It seems like it wasn't. I think you could have taken away the if it's red, you may cast it until the end of turn portion of it, and then I'd be much more excited about this card.
Yeah, the limiting factor of it being red does kind of suck, although it works on multicolored cards too, which is nice, but I don't think this card goes in anything above a 2-color deck, for sure. Like, this doesn't go in a Corvold or any other, decks with red in it.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I think it's a bit intriguing for that card advantage in red. We don't get to see a lot of that, and last time there was something like this on a Planeswalker, it made waves in multiple different formats, so...
Yeah, well, I think, what was it? You had Chandra Torture Defiance, and then I think the other one that has the exile effect would have been the Chandra from War of the Spark, but that was a rare Chandra, so it was much, much more powered down.
Mm-hmm.
So... All right. Well, I think we've talked enough about Chandra here. Should we move on to Kaia?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Kaia here is another 3-mana Planeswalker with 3 loyalty, but it's white-black, just like Kaia is typically. We've got the sweet double knife artwork here as looks like she's cutting a vampire. +1 gives your creatures Death Touch, and then you can put a single +1/+1 counter on up to a single creature token. So the first portion of that +1 is for any creature gets Death Touch that you control, and then the second portion is just for a single token. So it's a little confusing there. The -2 basically gives you an Anointed Procession, so twice the number of tokens that are you get twice the number of tokens that are created instead. So which is pretty cool. That's a very powerful effect. Anointed Procession is still a very expensive card.
Yeah.
And it was in Standard back when it was for Amonkhet. And then the -6, exile all cards from the graveyard and create that many 1/1 white spirit tokens with flying for every card exiled. So again, probably an ultimate that's going to win you the game. It doesn't win it on the spot, but probably assuming that you haven't already exiled all of the cards in the graveyard, which could happen. In Historic Brawl, there's a lot of graveyard hate.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll likely win the game from all the spirits you create from that.
Oh, yeah. So what do you think, Blake? What's your take on this?
I like it a lot for a token deck. I just feel like, we look at some of the other Kaias that you see, like the one that I immediately comes to mind is, again, the 3-mana one from, I can't remember if it's War of the Spark or the other most recent Ravnica set. Again, is a 3-mana, 3 loyalty Planeswalker that just seems a little bit more versatile. You can exile a card from a graveyard and gain life, or you can destroy something with 1 CMC with the other Planeswalker there. Whereas this one is very much, you want to be a black and white tokens deck, or, a black, white, green is a very typical tokens color deck. And I think in that instance, it'd be great, acting as a weaker Anointed Procession effect. But other than that, I really just don't see playing this card in anything else. What do you think, Levi?
Yeah, this card is very niche. I frankly, I don't really like the +1. It doesn't do anything to advance your board or do it almost anything at all on the turn it comes out.
Mm-hmm.
The -2 is intriguing in like a Teysa Karlov deck to get something to pop off. But I don't know. It just seems like you could run Anointed Procession and have that effect just constantly. Like, I'd pay 1 more mana for that. Like you said, the ultimate will probably just win you the game, but I don't see you getting to that ultimate at all anytime soon, given it takes 4 turns to get there and activate.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Not bad, but it's definitely the weakest of them all, I'd think.
Yeah. What would you say if the +1 didn't give Death Touch until end of turn, but gave it until the end of your opponent's turn? So that way your creatures kept Death Touch and maybe it protected itself a little more. Because I'm assuming you probably had creatures if you're playing this card.
Yeah, I don't know. I would actually be more inclined if it was non-token limiting. Like, if I could just put 1/1 counters on stuff that wasn't tokens, I think that's better than giving it till end of opponent's turn, or maybe throw back to Ikoria and give Death Touch counters.
Oh, yeah.
That would be intriguing, but as it stands, I don't think that this is a great card.
Yeah. That's
very interesting that they went with 3-mana walkers, as Wizards has tended to avoid that after the Oko issue that they had. But these don't seem like they're going to cause that many waves, because neither of them really have ways to protect themselves like Oko did.
Yeah. Well, it's not in Simic, so they can't print a busted Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Funny. Well, all right. Let's talk about Soren the Mirthless. 4-mana Planeswalker with 4 loyalty. So one more cost and 1 more loyalty than the other 2. +1 nets you a card for the cost of life equal to its mana cost. And it's an optional trigger, which is very nice. -2, create a 2/3 black vampire token with flying and lifelink. I know a lot of people keep saying that what is it? Not Nighthawk Scavenger.
Vampire Nighthawk.
Yeah, they keep calling it that, but it does not have Death Touch. So so just note that it's not really a Vampire Nighthawk. And then -7, Soren deals 13 damage to any target, and you gain 13 life. So a pretty big, 26 life swing between you and your opponent, or, if you're playing a multiplayer game, you and a single opponent.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of Soren?
I think you might have changed my mind, and he might be the best just after looking at his all-around. I actually think his ultimate's probably the weakest out of all of them. It doesn't do much. Like, 13 damage is a lot, but that doesn't end a game in Historic Brawl, and I don't even think it's close a lot of the time. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I don't think that, like, if you get to that ultimate, I want to win the game, not just do 13 damage.
Yeah, same. I think, to me, it feels like a win more. If you are able to ultimate Soren because you protected him so well, and you can kill your opponent with 13 damage, you're probably going to kill him with 13 damage from something else anyway.
Yeah, you definitely have a commanding board position if you can get this Soren to ultimate. Like, yeah, I'm with you. I don't think, like, if I can get this to ultimate, it's going to swing a game in my favor necessarily. Although the +1 and minus, it protects itself, it gives you a card draw. Like, I don't know what else I want on a Planeswalker more than that. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously you want a little ramp, so let's just add in Chandra's ability, and then it's perfect, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
No, all joking aside, I do think it's a very solid Planeswalker. Now, obviously, it's not anywhere near the level of some of the previous Sorens that we've seen, like Soren Imperious Bloodlord or anything like that. But I think it's a solid option. I think it's more something you'd probably add for flavor or just additional card advantage value. I in the 4-drop slot, obviously you have Twilight Prophet, which is like the most expensive vampire, maybe the second most expensive vampire in any format. Which I don't think this really compares to that, but I think it does add another 4-drop slot in a vampire deck, or really any black deck that just continually gets value.
Yeah. not only that, but it protects that value, which I think can be really important. Planeswalkers are notoriously hard to remove unless you are playing black. So being able to get a creature out there, with him only going, you can do it twice in a row if you really need to as well, which is really interesting. So
yeah, establish your board presence with 2/2/3. Yep.
But yeah,
well,
it's no Soren Markov where on enter you can reduce an opponent's life total to 10.
Yeah, it's definitely not the power level that we've seen of previous Sorens. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think after Imperious Bloodlord, they said, you know what, we'll tone him down a little bit.
Yeah, even the rare one from War of the Spark, letting you resurrect stuff from a graveyard. Oh man.
Yeah, I love that card as a commander. I've been actually playing, just in preparation for this, I've been playing some Soren Vengeful Bloodlord. And it's a ton of fun because vampires typically are aristocrats, so you just play some aristocrats style vampires in black and white, and then reanimate your stuff with your commander.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
All right, Levi, I've got a hard question for you.
Yeah.
Which of the tribes benefited the most, or looks like it would be benefited the most from Innistrad Crimson Vow? So we've got zombies, vampires, humans, werewolves. We even have some spirits in this set. Which one do you think benefited the most from this upcoming set?
So oddly enough, I don't believe it's the vampires. My take from this would be zombies all the way. I actually think from the last two sets, zombies have gotten by far the best deal on both the sets, and I think they're cashing it in again.
Yeah, I have to say that is probably the case too. It seems like zombies are very powerful here, and in fact, we get cards like Geralf.
Geralf.
The German Dutch pronunciation there is tricky. Making your dead guys fly. It's a pretty cool ability.
Yeah, and then Necro Duality, probably just arguably maybe the best card from this set for just any tribe.
Yeah.
Taking it here with zombies, of whenever another non-token zombie enters the battlefield, just create a copy of it. 4 mana. Like, it's pretty bonkers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when I originally read this card when it was being spoiled, I read it backwards. So whenever a token comes into play, you just create another token that's a copy of it. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I reread it and I was like, oh my goodness. It creates tokens for non-token zombies. So like your Headless Rider comes into play and you create another Headless Rider and another 2/2 black zombie. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Headless Rider is when it dies, not on the battlefield. But yeah, either way, you get 2 Headless Riders.
Yeah, I think it's probably just arguably the best in this set for any tribe with Necro Duality alone. They probably could have given zombies nothing else, and I still might claim that zombies got it best with this card.
Seriously.
The second ability on Geralf is kind of cool, but it reads 1 in a blue and tap it, sack another non-token creature, create an XX blue zombie creature token where X is a sacrifice creature's toughness. I don't see that being a huge thing. Just thought I'd mention it. It's the zombies having flying. It's the real one that matters in this. You're not going to run Geralf for that second ability.
Yeah, I totally agree. Unless, I mean, even in a deck where you are, trying to build around Geralf to begin with, where you're sacrificing a creature and, pumping up the creature's toughness. I mean, there is some of that in blue, and, you could run, the Defender's deck or something like that and run this in there and get kind of a fun little way to also have a way to use your toughness instead, but I don't really see that as being a very solid option. I'm with you there that it's pretty much you're going to send your dead guys flying at your opponent.
Yeah, although Headless Rider, all-star as well. Just having any non-token zombie create a 2/2 zombie without Decayed. Decayed really put a hamper on it, the zombies, from playing them. That they could only attack once and couldn't block was kind of bad. Now that this creature creates non-decayed tokens, I think that's huge. Because just getting every time, even if it dies immediately, it's still 3 mana for a 3/1 that they had to remove or you got a block out of that also created a 2/2. That just is so strong.
Yeah, you're essentially 2-for-1ing your opponent if it resolves. So.
And 2-for-1 is the base.
Yeah, that's true. It makes all of your zombies 2-for-1s that are not the token. So, yeah, I definitely agree that Headless Rider is awesome. There's I think it's a 2-mana enchantment from Midnight Hunt that has the ones that create the decayed zombies. And it's obviously less powerful, but being an enchantment, it's harder to remove. So, personally, I'm running both cards in the deck, but the Headless Rider definitely feels like a bit of an improvement over it.
That combined with the zombie army stuff from War of the Spark, I think zombies is going to be a legit tribe in this format. Really, we're only missing an insane general, but I think any blue-black general will work well enough.
Yeah. I know a lot of people run Narfi. I've seen a couple of Ludovic decks out there, but they don't really seem to be that powerful.
Both of those are fine. I just don't think that, compared to some of the other tribes that we see with werewolves having something like Tofilar, who's just insane, I don't think, as much as zombies has so much support now, I don't actually think they have an insane general yet. So.
Yeah. I've seen Scarab God as well.
Scarab God is a very intriguing one. I think that's probably my favorite one so far, especially just because I think it's objectively the most powerful one that zombies has.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the spiciest. You get a lot of just incremental value from some of the unique stuff that Scarab God does relative to, just being a plain old lord like Narfi is, or having that mill ability that Ludovic has.
Yeah, you also get to steal stuff from your opponent's graveyard. So, Scarab God.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for them to print an Esper zombie, because we have all those white-black zombies from Amonkhet.
Yep. And, Hour of Devastation. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I'd love to see a combination. I think you could get really, really evil with Binding Mummy and stuff like that. If we get an Esper one, but I do think that blue-black is kind of just much stronger than that, because the stuff like Necro Duality gives you just a huge edge.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, speaking of tribes here, Levi, let's talk about your favorite tribe here, and that's werewolves.
Werewolves!
I think we need to have you just shout out whatever I say after I say it from now on.
Absolutely.
So, I think the first one, and I didn't even include the backside of this card. Now we're going from right to left, so I'm just being really inconsistent.
Oh, yeah, I'm here for that.
Howlpack Piper. Walk me through this card and how bananas it is.
So, Howlpack Piper is a 4-mana 2/2 for 3 and a green. It is a creature human werewolf that reads, this spell cannot be countered, and you can pay 1 and a green to tap Howlpack Piper, and you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If it's a wolf or werewolf, untap Howlpack Piper. Activate this only as a sorcery. And then, of course, it has Daybound, which lets it transform during day and night. This card is very similar to the Elvish Piper from whatever set that was from, where it just let you put a creature onto the play. This is even cooler because if it's a wolf or a werewolf, you get to untap the Howlpack Piper. Now, this only being able to be used as a sorcery doesn't matter when you can still slam a Craterhoof Behemoth on turn 5. And I think this probably goes in almost every green deck in the format, not just werewolves. I think it's an auto-include in wolves and werewolves. So.
Absolutely, yeah. Honestly, I would say that even beyond just mono green decks, I could see this being run if you have a black-green. I don't know about blue-green, because I feel like there's just so much value that you get from playing blue-green. But honestly, pretty much anything other than blue-green, if you're 2-color or just mono-green, Well, I don't know why you wouldn't run it.
Yeah, it's insane. Especially since it can't be countered, that's crazy. Like, you gotta remove this. They'll probably get an activation out of it, or you'll have to use one of your best removal spells on it right away. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, the next one that I'd like to talk about here is Avabruk Caretaker, which is a 6 mana human werewolf. It's one of the mythics from the set. 4/4 with hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on another target creature you control. And the Nightbound side is a 6/6 werewolf with hexproof. Other permanents you control have hexproof. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put 2+1/+1 counters on each creature you control. What do you think about this card, Levi?
Yeah, very strong. Having hexproof is really good. If you can get it to stick, it'll be really challenging to remove. If you can get it to that backside, I think it's bonkers. Being able to put 2/1/1 counters on each creature you control every combat while giving everything you control hexproof, that just seems strong. It's also a 6/6, meaning it's not going to die easily. And if you get to combat, it's just an 8/8. So, pretty strong. I don't know if it slots into every deck, like the Hellpack Piper, but I definitely see this going in Werewolves, maybe some red-green Stompy. Like you said earlier, I don't think it gets into Simic just because Simic has so much disgusting value.
Yeah.
But I definitely see this in like shining in like red-green Stompy, mono-green Stompy, just anything that wants to have a big thing get you some value.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here's the line, Levi. Turn 2, Arcane Signet. Turn 3, Howlpack Piper. Turn 4, Avabruk Caretaker.
Yeah, seems strong.
Yeah.
Not only mentioning that will turn it to nighttime, as the Howlpack Piper activating the ability does not count as casting a spell. So
that's true. Wow.
I think that makes the Piper even better for the werewolf deck, meaning that you don't actually have to cast your creatures on you don't actually have to cast your creatures, right? You still get to play them on your turn, and you get to activate this ability probably up to, I could see upwards of 6 times in a werewolf deck. But you don't have, and then you get to pass the turn and switch it to night, which just seems very, very, very strong.
That's crazy. Yeah. I honestly didn't even put that together, that the ability allows you to basically switch it to night,
Yep. It's that I think is probably the best benefit for the werewolf deck, but I still see this Howlpack Piper going in pretty much every other green deck. So.
Agreed. Well, speaking of ubiquitous cards here, let's talk about vampires. The main tribe from the set, and obviously they have some pretty sweet artwork here. I have to say, I'm kind of disappointed there aren't a lot of cards from the set that I would really jam into even some of the vampire decks, but much less any other deck beyond vampires. What's your take on vampires overall, Levi?
Yeah, for being a vampire set, this is pretty weak. We didn't get an insane general for vampires like we did with werewolves and Tovolar last set. We don't see any blood tokens are fine, but I don't think that vampires as a whole will have them for the rest of the mechanics. So in future sets, so I don't think that it's anything crazy good. We don't have any insane lords. I think the new Olivia, jumping ahead a little bit, I think the new Olivia is pretty disappointing, but yeah, I don't know, a little lackluster overall. How about you, Blake?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially when it comes to Olivia, I think the only way I can see you playing Olivia is either in the 99 is just a fun flavor value card of a red-black vampire deck, or if you're going to use it as a commander, you wouldn't even play vampires. You'd play some kind of janky reanimator deck where you're trying to cheat something massive from the graveyard and win the game in a single swing. Because as soon as they kill Olivia, you already got to pay 6 for the first time. Then you pay 8 and then 10. I mean, to recast a commander of that much mana cost, not being in green, you're kind of asking for a lot there.
Yeah. I think this card would be decent if it was a 4 total cost, but at 6, it's pretty much unplayable. It's a 3/4, which means it's probably not doing an insane amount on the board state. Although it does get to attack right away with haste, which is good. Which means that you get the attack trigger right away turn 1. But I don't know. This Olivia just doesn't spark my fancy at all.
Yeah. I think the Madness Olivia still just holds a special place in my heart as discarding cards and getting value from it is my favorite mechanic of all time.
Oh, yeah.
So this one doesn't really... It's powered down, first of all, and then also the actual flavor of it is just kind of lame, if you ask me. But
yeah, we also should probably tell people what Olivia does.
that sounds like a good call.
Olivia Crimson Bride is a 6 mana 3/4 legendary creature vampire noble with flying and haste. And it reads, whenever Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped and attacking. It gains when you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature. So.
Yeah, and I think really that last line of text really is the nail in the coffin, pun intended, for Olivia, because as much as there are a lot of legendary vampires, which we'll talk about another one here, actually a couple more in a second, the simple fact of the matter is that a lot of times I imagine that if you are in a losing state, you're probably only going to have Olivia as your only legendary vampire, and as you're reanimating creatures, unless you're reanimating a legendary, which I guess would be kind of nice, it's going to die along with Olivia because your opponent's immediately going to kill it, using whatever spot removal they have.
Yeah. The other thing is, in Rakdos, you're not known for ramping, meaning 6 mana. You probably get 1 shot at casting this Olivia, and if you're playing a control deck, maybe less than 1. So, I don't know. This just doesn't do a whole lot for me.
Yeah, I agree. Well, speaking of legendary vampires, let's talk about Edgar, Charmed Groom. This is a black and white 4 mana planeswalker. 4 mana vampire noble.
We wish.
We wish it was a planeswalker. It's a 4/4. Other vampires get +1/+1. It's a MDFC, or modal double face card here. And when it dies, you return it transformed. And the backside is Edgar Markov's Coffin. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 black vampire, white and black vampire, with lifelink. Put a bloodline counter on Edgar Markov's Coffin, and then if there's 3 counters on it, remove those and transform it. So basically, each time it dies, it turns into the coffin, and then it nets you 3 vampires over the course of 3 turns if the artifact sticks around, and then transforms back into Edgar Charmed Groom. What do you think, Levi?
Very disappointed. Although I kind of expected to be disappointed by the new Edgar, given that it could never possibly be as good as the other Edgar. Honestly, the main thing I'm disappointed is that they cut out red. We don't really get a good Mardu General, or really a good Mardu Vampire in this set, meaning you're going to have to pick between running either Orzhov or Rakdos vampires, and either way you're losing out on a lot of good value.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I would pay 6 mana for this card if it was in Mardu.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd go that far, because I don't think he's that good, but...
I'm desperate, Levi.
Yeah, fair enough. There really is no good Mardu commander. It's basically run Golos here.
Yep.
But still, I think him being a Vampire Lord at a base with a good 4/4 stat line is nice, and that this is really hard to kill, given you have to either exile him or kill him and then remove the artifact. I don't think this is very good in our format. I don't know, like, it's not splashy enough. It doesn't do a whole lot at a 4-drop when I can do amazing other things at my 4-drop slot. I think he slots into the vampire deck, but other than that, I don't think he goes anywhere else. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would agree. He's definitely the 99. I mean, I love the flavor of it because just like a vampire, he's dying, going into his coffin, and then coming back out. I mean, it seems like a really cool flavor to it. But
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right that this is just another vampire lord, and maybe even an overcosted one at that. Um,
Yeah.
my personal favorite vampire from the set is Anj,
Anya.
Native Dishonor. Anya. Anya.
Anya. Mm-hmm.
Well, this podcast is known for its phenomenal pronunciations, so folks, I
Mm-hmm.
apologize for our lapse.
We won the YouTube pronunciation awards, so
That's
this is a little
that's
disappointing,
totally a
Blake.
real thing.
Yep, 100%.
Well, however you pronounce her, I think she's pretty cool that you get a bunch of blood tokens each time you play a vampire and you play her. But even that, I'm not that thrilled. I feel like I'm probably running Soren Vengeful Bloodlord as my commander from now on still, and then maybe Golos vampires I'll add in a couple from this set.
Yeah. What they really should do is just bring back the old Edgar Markov, and vampires will be the best tribe in Historic Brawl.
It'll be the best deck in Historic Brawl.
Yeah, that is fair. That other Edgar is so broken that it would probably just meta define.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Edgar is the most expensive vampire, clocking in at $90 at time of recording.
Yeah. I will say there are some other vampires that they could have included that are Mardu, like just from that deck. Even they had those. What is it? Mathis, the Fiend Seeker, Lycia, Sanguine Tribune.
Yeah,
it's not like these are overpowered Mardu vampires. I guess I just don't understand why they couldn't have included one, even if it's a weak legendary Mardu vampire.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest disappointment from this set for me, is that we're not seeing a good legendary Mardu. Meaning, even just outside of Historic Brawl, the commander deck commander is Rakdos. Meaning that if they ever slot the commander decks, or the pieces from those, some of the legendaries from those in there, we're not getting a good one, or anything like that. It's really disappointing after seeing Werewolves get such an amazing commander that we're basically only getting cards for the 99, and some of them don't even fit in that. So,
yeah. I will agree. Well, so Levi, speaking of disappointment, how do you feel about the set overall? Is it a disappointment with these maybe lackluster vampires? Are you totally okay with that because werewolves and zombies got a nice upgrade? What's your thought overall on Innistrad Crimson Vow?
overall, I think the set is adding a couple really cool pieces to our format. I actually don't think it's going to be as influential as Midnight Hunt. I honestly think Tovlar stole the show. That card is just so busted. Like, not to mention giving zombies a buff in Midnight Hunt as well. But I do like this set. I think it will do some cool things. I think it's going to be really fun to draft. I think that we're going to see a couple spotlights for our format, like Necro Duality. I'm really excited to try and make the jank kill your opponent with the spirit that lets you alternate win con. I think that's probably my most exciting card from this set, is I'm going to do some dumb Teferi control where I don't let you do anything until I kill you with this stupid spirit. So
that sounds miserable, and I can't wait to see it.
Absolutely. But other than that, I think this set's good. It's definitely better than some of the sets we'd been seeing a little while back. Like, I think this is definitely much better than a Kaldheim. This is definitely much better than Zendikar. I think it's worse than Midnight Hunt and something like Strixhaven, but I'm just glad we're not getting another Throne of Eldraine.
Yeah. Honestly, the power level is fine by me. I don't have any qualms with that. I think overall, honestly, my disappointment is just in the flavor of it, because there are plenty of really cool cards that I think are going to be a ton of fun to add in the
Oh
format
yeah.
and add some power. Like, um, I'm definitely going to be running the legendary slug
Oh
Toxro in
yes.
my Gisa and my Turgid decks for sure. Um, there's that another flying dragon spellslinger style
Oh,
red
oh
card.
yeah. That's such a good card.
Yeah, but I will say I think just the flavor of it has been a little bit of a miss. You know,
Yeah.
vampires are weak, zombies are bananas.
hmm
So
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The other thing I want to say is that I don't actually think blood tokens are that good. Give me a clue any day over a blood token. Like, they deal a little bit of damage and they let you deck filter a bit, but making a lot of them doesn't do anything. Like, having 4 blood tokens, sure you can filter a bit, but I'd rather have 4 clue tokens any day. So, just these new staple tokens that they released, I think they're only better than food out of our staple tokens that we got, which are clue, treasure, food, and now blood. So
yeah,
that's
I will
my.
say they're pretty niche. I agree with you that they're just not as good. I
Mhm.
think for these blood tokens, it almost seems like they're like a callback to old Olivia or some of these other Madness vampire decks. Like, hey,
Yeah,
this will work really well with this old Madness vampire deck that you're running, which feels like a cop out to me. I don't
es- yeah, especially when they didn't put madness in this set. Like, blood tokens would have been like, imagine blood tokens with madness in this set. You know how crazy fun that would be. That
know.
would be
Yeah,
insane. Just having a
agreed.
discard outlet, but without that, in now we're in draft and in historic brawl where we don't have like a reasonable madness deck. No offense to your favorite mechanic, but it's not amazing. Um, right now, it's like if you had added madness to the set and then had the blood tokens, I think this would have been a flavor win. But
I
they
completely agree.
they kind of dropped the ball on that, and now we have blood token synergy in the fact that we can create blood tokens and make them a little bit better by altering them, but it doesn't. We don't have a way to use that discard in a madness like synergy. So I don't know, bit disappointing. I'm with you on
Yeah,
that.
I think really the only positive piece from that is the disturb mechanic, but disturb doesn't really seem there's not a ton of amazing disturb cards, and I don't think they're really in Rakdos colors typically. Um,
No, it's a Zorius mechanic. So if you can make 5 color weird things work with it, you're more than welcome to, but still not amazing.
yeah. Well, overall, I think what would you grade this set as on a letter scale here?
I'd give it a solid B. You're not breaking a format. You're not doing anything to amaze me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I was gonna say like a B minus. It's passable. It's gonna be fun. There's gonna be fun cards from it, but I don't know if it'll be memorable.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I think Midnight Hunt's going to be way more memorable than that, but I kind
yeah,
of think after Kamigawa Brothers War of next year, I think we're probably going to forget about this set. Unlike Eldraine or even Strixhaven, which made a pretty lasting impression in our format and others. So,
yeah. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in to the Brothers Brawl podcast. Leave a like, subscribe if you liked our content. Check out brothersbrawl.tech for more content. Levi, anything else you want to say before we sign off?
that's it for me. Thank you guys so much for listening, watching, however you decide. And keep an eye out for shorts that we get producing here on a pretty regular basis.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care.